This video is brought to you by NordVPN. When it comes to planes, two companies dominate the market: Airbus and Boeing. For decades, the two have been locked in competition, fighting it out to get their planes into the fleets of airlines across the globe. With billions on the line, a development by one leads the other to scramble. Recently, however, that scramble has led to a spot of bother for Boeing, culminating in issues with its flagship medium-haul airliner, the Boeing 737 MAX. Boeing have been beset by a series of issues, from deadly crashes through to flying doors, and it now looks like, after decades of rivalry, Airbus might be about to claim victory. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the Boeing-Airbus rivalry, the various problems affecting Boeing, and whether this could be the beginning of the end for the aviation giant. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. As we see it, there are three main problems facing Boeing at the moment: the planes themselves, Boeing's strained relations with regulators, and good old-fashioned politics. Let's start with the planes. Once synonymous with safety, Boeing aircraft have been plagued with issues for some time now. In October 2018, a brand new Boeing 737 MAX 8 plane crashed shortly after takeoff from Jakarta, killing all 189 people on board. Then, in the following March, another MAX 8 aircraft crashed after takeoff from Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, killing all 157 on board. In both instances, Boeing initially tried to deflect blame onto the pilots before issues with the plane itself came to light. In both instances, a system known as the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, or MCAS, activated after mistakenly determining that the planes were dangerously close to stalling. The system then intervened by pushing the nose of the plane down, in both cases against the express will of the pilots, who hadn't been told that they could be essentially overridden by MCAS. In any case, the two crashes in quick succession caused regulators around the world to ground the aircraft, at huge expense to Boeing, not least because it meant that further orders for the aircraft were pulled. A report by the US House of Representatives Transport and Infrastructure Committee would go on to state that the crashes were not the result of a singular failure, technical mistake, or mismanaged event. They were the horrific culmination of a series of failures. Boeing 737 MAX problems came to the fore again this year, when a door plug blew off an Alaska Airlines flight as it neared cruising altitude. Whilst a full probe is ongoing, the focus appears to be on whether the bolts holding the door plug in place had been tightened up correctly, and whether the door plug supplier, Sprint Aerosystems, was at fault. This entire debacle comes at a particularly bad time for the airline industry, and Boeing in particular. In 2023, the entire airline industry went into panic after bogus parts were found in the world's most widely flown engine, fitted to both Airbus and Boeing aircraft, and Boeing specifically had struggled over the past few years with more minor issues affecting parts of 737s, such as the fuselage, tail, rudder assembly, and even sealant protecting the central fuel tank. But the 737 MAX isn't the only plane that Boeing has had issues with recently. The others being the 787 Dreamliner, which has been grounded multiple times due to quality issues, and Air Force One. Yes, the plane of the President of the United States of America. Boeing have agreed to retrofit the current plane and build a new one, but cost overruns on the project topped over $2 billion late last year, and Boeing's CEO basically said he regretted ever taking the project on. These various problems explain why Boeing has reported losses to the tune of over $2 billion last year, and its stock is down nearly 20% since December, and about 35% compared to before the pandemic. At the same time, Airbus has reported higher than expected profits, accounting for a growing fraction of all aircraft deliveries, and is quickly catching up with Boeing in terms of market cap. This takes us on to the second issue: Boeing's relationship with regulators. All around the world, safety regulators have to actually check that an aircraft is safe to be put into the sky. If they're happy, they issue what's known as a type certificate. However, because regulators trust Boeing, a well-established company, under the US Federal Aviation Administration's ODA program, Boeing employees were allowed to assess and sign off on regulatory compliance, in certain areas on the FAA's behalf. In other words, the FAA delegated responsibility for regulating Boeing to, Boeing itself, a huge conflict of interest. Unsurprisingly, following the 737 MAX crashes and the incident with Alaska Airlines flight, the FAA has now swung violently the other way, increasing oversight of Boeing manufacturing and production, with the head of the FAA, Mike Whitaker, saying that it is time to re-examine the delegation of authority. This could be a huge financial headache for Boeing. One of the driving forces behind MCAS was to avoid having to recertify the entire aircraft. If aircraft are substantially different or new, they have to go through the whole process of getting a type rating and certificate, which for a passenger jet can get prohibitively expensive. Removing Boeing's delegated authority, which seems likely at this point, will be costly. Finally, there's the issue of politics, and specifically China. As a proud American company, Boeing has, in the eyes of some, been a pawn in trade relations between the US and China, with a freeze on deliveries since 2019 still broadly in place to this day. That freeze has not only hurt Boeing's bottom line, but also allowed Airbus to swoop in and overtake Boeing in the single-aisle jet space. The situation is made all the more dire for Boeing when you begin to factor in the rise of COMAC, or the Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China, a state-owned aircraft manufacturer that now has a viable competitor to both the Airbus A320 and Boeing 737 family in the form of the COMAC C919. There is, however, a saving grace for Boeing, the US government. In the words of The Economist, Boeing is no ordinary company. To give you a sense of its scale, consider that before the pandemic, Boeing and its suppliers employed 1 in every 130 American workers. Very few companies also have a military division, let alone a military division with such close relations to the US military complex. So while Airbus may eke out ahead, Boeing is not going anywhere anytime soon. Whatever the future may hold, it will always be important to keep yourself safe online. Fortunately, when it comes to your digital safety, NordVPN has your back. It's an unfortunate reality that online scams and phishing attacks are on the rise, with us constantly bombarded by annoying notifications and emails that we forgot we even signed up to. It's easy to click the wrong link. One seemingly innocent link can compromise security and bring things crashing down. With the protection of NordVPN though, you can use their threat protection feature to identify potentially suspicious links. Even if you reached a suspicious website, NordVPN's data encryption tools would protect you and your data against a number of other attacks, such as malicious man-in-the-middle breaches. But if things do go wrong, NordVPN's dark web monitoring is always scanning for your compromised details across the entire internet, and can even notify you before you even notice anything's gone wrong. So if you want to securely connect to that free Wi-Fi at your local coffee shop without worrying about someone trying to take a peek at your personal data, you can sign up for a 2-year plan with a massive discount and 4 months free at nordvpn.com/TLDR. We've been told that sometimes our viewers just open a new tab and type in the URL themselves, and while we're certainly glad that you're using the service, you only get the discount and support the channel through that link. So if you wish to get the discount and support independent journalism further, make sure you sign up using our link. That's nordvpn.com/TLDR. Thanks for your support.